Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Sharon Bonney, the CEO for COABE, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our first session of its kind like this to help support hybrid presenters at the COABE conference. We're really excited to welcome you, and I'm excited to turn this over to Steve Schmidt, who is our Present with Excellence coach. Many of you have already connected with him probably over email or seen him at the COABE conferences in the past, but he is leading that initiative. So, Steve, I'll turn this over to you now. Thank you.
Well, Sharon, thanks so much. I appreciate that introduction. And we are looking forward today to our session, which is, as Sharon mentioned, the first of its kind. And I hope we can see the screen and that we're ready to go. But I want to welcome each and every one of you to our AALPD and COABE coffee break specifically for hybrid presenters. If you're presenting at the conference in a hybrid fashion, that is, you are presenting in face-to-face there at the conference and also presenting to those who are attending virtually, this is the place for you. And this is a coffee break. This is not a webinar. We will be doing a little bit of teaching up front and sharing some suggestions, but the vast majority of our presentation today is a coffee break. In other words, this will be a guided informal session where we'll share best practices for hybrid presenting, and we will have some questions to guide this, but please feel free to share. And so this is not the time to be afraid. This is the time to bravely share the best practices that you have for hybrid presenting. And we're so glad that we have so many that are here today. So I will introduce myself and then let my co-producers introduce themselves. And I'm thrilled to work with each one of them today. But I'm Steve Schmidt. I am the COABE Present with Excellence coach, in addition to being an adult ed consultant. And I am thrilled to be here today to present with two of my favorite people. And Kim, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Glenn. I work with an organization called EDSI. I am our Managing Director of Innovative Learning Solutions, and my organization oversees Michigan Adult Education's professional development system. And I am a board member, a longtime board member of AALPD with my friend Sarah. Pass it to you.
Yes, and I share Steve's sentiment that I am thrilled to be here today, and I'm thrilled to share with both Steve and Kim. That's one of the pleasures of doing this type of thing is the collaboration, and we love that. My name is Sarah Goldammer, and I'm excited to be here with you. I'm hail from Illinois, and I am the director of SIPDC, which is part of our professional development network that provides all of our professional development in Illinois. I'm also a proud board member of AALPD.
And Sarah, if people did not know what AALPD was, could you tell them, please, a little bit more about what AALPD does and is?
Sure, we provide professional development for professional developers across the state. So most states have some type of system for their professional development. And so we provide networking, webinars, collaboration, some discussion groups, that type of thing, all of that for PDers from around the country.
Thank you, Sarah. I love the way you said PDers, PD for PDers. Very good. Love it. Well, thank you all both so much for being part of our coffee break today. So just again, we'll share a few slides, but again, the vast majority of this is sharing best practices. And so we were looking forward to the good exchange that we'll have as we go on through this afternoon. The biggest thing that we'd like to say if you're presenting hybrid is you need a buddy. I don't care how wonderful of a presenter you are. We can only do so much as human beings, and we need a buddy to help. This slide does show graphically illustrated how that works, where we see there on the left side of the screen this gentleman who is the presenter, and he is presenting to the face-to-face group, but he is also presenting to those who are not present in the room. Sometimes we call these roomers and zoomers. I like that nomenclature, roomers and zoomers. But he has a buddy with him. We see the young lady who's seated at the table with her computer is the buddy, and she is making sure that those who are attending through Zoom are just as much a part of the presentation as those who are attending inside the room. We want to make sure that the presentation for hybrid is just as good and just as effective and just as compelling for those in the room as it is for those who are attending through Zoom. And the buddy helps to ensure that. The buddy can make sure that if anyone in the online audience has questions, they can take those. They can reiterate any questions that are asked from the audience. They can serve as a second pair of eyes, ears, and hands for the presenter. And they are absolutely vital and essential and can take, if we try to do and present alone, we are going to be limited in effectiveness. But with that buddy, our effectiveness will increase 2, 3, 4 times. So it's absolutely essential. And who should your buddy be? We'll talk to your colleagues. Maybe someone else is coming to the conference and they would be more than happy to assist you. We will also, as we get closer to the conference, have a kind of a buddy exchange that if you're willing to serve as a buddy, or if you need a buddy, we'll have that marketplace there, so to speak, where you can find a buddy or resolve to serve as a buddy for the conference. So absolutely vital that you need a buddy. And now is the time to be thinking about this, not the day before the conference. We need to get that lined up so we're ready to go and ideally have practiced beforehand. So we definitely need a buddy. So we're just going to go through a few things that we should keep in mind while we present hybrid, things before and just before and then during the presentation. And the KISS, in other words, keep it simple principle is one that we should always follow. And as we are creating our presentations, we want to keep it simple. And I remember last year while I was serving as a presenter coach and working with one of our presenters, and they had 130 slides that they wanted to present during their 75-minute presentation last year. And we as a coach, you don't ever want to tell anybody that they're making a mistake, but we want to gently ask some questions. And I was asking, do we really need all these slides of all your locations across the counties that you serve? Is that really going to help get your point across in the fact that you have just your 70 minutes to present? And so they were able to pare that down and had a wonderful presentation once they realized that simple is better. So that's one way to do it. A planning tool is also very effective. And we'll have put in the chat, Bethel will put in the planning doc. There's a Google Doc you can link to. And it's just a very simple, straightforward planning document that you can use to plan your presentation. I always believe in backward design, or in other words, you think about the end before you start. What am I hoping that my audience is going to leave with? What skills, what knowledge, what action steps? What are they going to leave with? And think about that and plan your presentation back from that. And the planning tool, very simple, is one that could help. You may have another planning tool that you like. But if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And so please use whatever planning tool that you like and that helps. And that will make sure that your presentation is much more effective. Would also suggest as we're looking at interactivity as we do our presentations, maybe using a simple ed tech tool. Doesn't have to be anything very fancy. It could be something where maybe we have a shared Google Doc that's available and where those who are in the room on their phones or laptops can participate. Those who are attending at a distance can participate with that. And there's a question that's been raised or we're asking for some type of input, everyone can participate in that shared Google Doc, which could then be showed on the screen so everyone could see that. So there's a number of other tech tools that we'll be talking about a little bit there. And of course, if you have your favorite ed tech tool that you like to use, whether that's Mentimeter or Poll Everywhere or whatever, we can be talking about that as we talk more about best practices. Finally, one other things we were talking before the session started about control and that I'm a recovering control freak. One way that you can stay in control is having a reminder sheet of all the things you need, like the login that you'll be sent prior to the conference, your password that you need, and any other information that's specifically related to the COABE conference. Have those in one place, whether that's in a note on your phone, whether you like to have that in paper, whether you put that on a sticky note, in whatever way, shape, or form. Have that reminder sheet. That just is something that can take a load off your mind and have that available and ready to go as you go on through. So, a few things to think about. I will toss it over now to Kim for our next few slides.
Thanks, Steve. So those of you that know me know that I'm a big planner and I use a lot of planning documents and I think everything through. And so one of the things that we learned about these hybrid presentations is people would often plan for the in-person first and then the virtual portion, which is an afterthought. And you want to make sure that you're actually doing that in kind of the reverse way. So that way your virtual audience gets the same type of lovely, engaging, and inspiring workshop that your in-person people get. So by starting with thinking about your online audience first, you're going to be able to make really great strategic decisions and to make sure that they are also having a great experience. And then you're able to think about kind of those tasks that you can do with the audience in person. So highly recommend that kind of reverse methodology rather than starting with the in-person. The other thing is you have to think about what you're doing, how many tasks you have. So are you doing a discussion? Are you doing a pair? Are you doing an activity? And how much time they're going to take the audience. And your online audience might need more time. And that's what we have seen over the years is sometimes it's easier to do in person, but when you get online, there needs to be kind of a little bit more time. So for those of us that like to use those tools like Steve was talking about, whether it's Google Drive or Mentimeter, or I love Padlet, or even sometimes Pear Deck, those things, when we're asking the audience to engage in an online tool, that takes a little bit more time. And so a lot of times we don't think about that and we're like, oh yeah, type in 2 seconds, but it takes a little bit longer. So make sure you're planning that out carefully and you're timing out the duration of those. And then I can't talk enough about a second buddy, but like I even have 3 and 4 buddies for hybrids. So for example, our pre-conference session that AALPD is doing, it's hybrid. So we have what people that will be presenting live. We have our buddy who's in the room, like Steve showed you. And then we have a bunch of people that are supporting breakout rooms and other type of group things that are happening in the virtual space. And so you want to make sure that that person is set up, that you guys practice before you get in, if at all possible. How is that going to look? Where are you going to want to prompt them to see what's happening in the chat? What are your cues with one another? If something's happening and the online audience is noticing something, how are you going to kind of communicate that without having a large disruption to your hybrid presentation? And so you want to make sure that your buddy knows everything that you're asking them to do, all the spots that they need to be a part of. So a dry run through with your buddy is something we highly, highly recommend. So I think I have a few more tips. So thinking strategically about when you're going to take questions in a hybrid presentation is really important. Sometimes you'll be like, hey, if you have a question, just ask it. Hybrid presentations get a little bit sticky when you're being interrupted. And so you want to kind of plan with your presenter buddy, at this point, we're going to pause and we're going to look at the questions that are coming in through the chat, or we're going to pause for some questions. You want to make sure that your online audience feels like they are engaged and connected, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're not interrupting every few seconds when a new question pops up in the chat. So really awesome opportunities for you guys to kind of work together. And then know your room setup ahead of time. I walk around the room, so hybrid presentations are hard for me because I got to stand where like I can be seen. So it's an exercise in patience, but where do you want your buddy to be? Where's the most logical place to put them in the room, right? Am I working in a large space or a small space, right? Is it long? Is it wide? So really thinking about how your room is set up, where your buddy should be, and how you're going to be able to navigate and think about all of that as you move forward. And then finally, you got to know the Whova platform. a lot of us go in and we're like, yeah, it's an app. And then the day of, or you're getting in there and you're like, I don't know how to start this. So we don't want that to happen to anybody. We don't want you in your room panicking, being like, what do you mean I have to present out of the app? So we really want you to get used to the Whova platform. There are a ton of tutorials that exist on how to use that Whova platform. And so be familiar with it. The Whova platform gives you a lot of opportunity to engage with your audience ahead of time as well. And we highly encourage you to do that, to use all of the features and functionality that exists within there. So I know that there are some questions popping up in the chat. Steve, I don't know if we want to take them as we go, or if we want to wait towards the end, but I've been seeing some chatter going on. Why don't we move on to Sarah, and we'll finish this up, and then we'll come back to some of the questions that are happening.
Yeah, we will come back to questions. I'm sorry. But we'll
Oh, okay.
questions as we do the discussion format. So thank you, Kim. That was awesome.
Yeah, so let's move on to just before the presentation. When I said that, did anybody's stomach kind of get tight? Like, oh no, it was so easy when Steve was talking about planning and Kim was saying we're going to plan this stuff, but now it's like just before the presentation. So let's all exhale, because we're going to do these following things. Make sure that you arrive early. Give yourself some time. And I just saw a question in the chat about how big is the venue? How much time am I going to need to get to someplace? Arriving early just helps to calm those nerves. And if something does go wrong, and that's the thing, things before we did hybrid presentations, when we were only in person, things went wrong, right? And they still do. And so we just need to say it's going to be okay. And we're going to figure it out because we've planned, we have the planning document, and because we've practiced, and because we have buddies. Okay. One of the things that we're going to do is test your videos and educational tech tools, making sure that everything works, because you've practiced, you've tried all of those out, but now you're in a new place. Michelle just put in the chat, there's going to be a laptop there that's different. So you just want to make sure that everything's working. And if you get there early and log in, then you have some time to make sure you can try those out. There is, for anybody who's brand new to COABE, there are people that come around for tech support. So like if you're starting to get concerned about that, I just want to put you at ease, because there are tons of people to help you in addition to your buddy. Engage with participants as they enter the room. I love to play some music. I think it's just fun and engaging. It's like, okay, this is someplace that I want to be. You're not going to have your virtual attendees for a long time before, like they're just going to kind of come in. But for the people that are coming into your room, you want to make sure that you're talking with them, that you're welcoming them in. And if you're sitting there going, Sarah, that's really not my jam, I'm not comfortable with that, maybe that's something else that you want to have your buddy do before. If you're all set up with your tech, have somebody else welcome, hand out papers, that old school thing. But making sure that everybody feels comfortable. You want to set that inviting tone for success. Your buddy or colleague can help with all of that. So I think that's really important, to make sure that you have the time and you've thought it through. That's another part of that planning process, is know what you're going to do in that 15 minutes before you start, because then you can sort of go check, check, check. Oh yes, I've done all of those things. And if something happens that doesn't work right, then you feel comfortable that you've got everything in place. All right, so now during the presentation, you want to be in camera range so the Zoomers can see you. Please don't walk away and have them see nobody the entire presentation. Now, if you're standing there going, man, I can't stand behind a podium. Kim already told us she likes to move around. I do too. That's part of kind of that interaction. You don't have to stand there every single minute of that presentation, but you want to make sure that you make that connection early on. Make sure that they know that you see them, that you see that they're there. Acknowledge them. Welcome. You've already welcomed the people in the physical room. Welcome the people in the virtual room also. Make them feel like they belong and they are a wanted participant in your presentation. So, and maybe just tell them that, hey, you guys, I'm not going to be here every minute, but don't worry, I've not forgotten about you, and I will be back and we will interact. So even just saying that at the beginning is going to be huge. And then you want to come back and check in every so often. Oops, hold on, Steve. And then lastly, that microphone. I don't want to move on before we talk about the microphone because it's really important. The only way that those online attendees are going to hear what's said in the room is if they speak into a microphone. And I know a bunch of you are teachers, and teachers love to brag about their teacher voice. They're so proud of it. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Make sure everyone uses the microphone. And I'm just going to take this minute to put this out there for all events. Do that. Sometimes people can't hear as well. So it's just very good practice to make sure that we speak into the microphone. That's one of your buddies' responsibilities also, is if you forget because you get caught up in what you're sharing and you're thinking about a million things, then the buddy says, oh, no, hold on, we got to get the microphone there. They might take it there, and they might just even remind you that you need to have a microphone. All right, so a couple more things during the presentation. Repeat those questions from both the room and the Zoom so the audience can hear. So if they have the microphone, maybe it was heard, but it's still a good practice to kind of repeat that. If it's something that was put in the chat, you want to make sure and say that out loud for the people that are in the room. So you and your buddy are the bridge between those two audiences. But keep in mind, while you're doing this presentation, this hybrid presentation, is it more work? Yes. But is it worth it? Absolutely, because more people get to hear the valuable information that you are sharing, and that is key. So keep that in mind when you're spending your time making extra plans for a hybrid presentation. Steve and Kim both mentioned collaborative tools. Poll Everywhere, Slido, Mentimeter, Pear Deck, Google Docs, and Kahoot. Here's the thing, you guys. I'm going to give you a little warning there. These are all great. Which one should you pick? Well, try them out. Make sure, number one, that you're very comfortable with what you're using. The first time you're using it should not be during your presentation or even the day before your presentation. You need to have tried this out multiple times, and your buddy needs to have tried it out multiple times so that everybody feels comfortable with it. Kim mentioned it takes a little more time. So keep that in mind also, that we need to make sure that everybody is comfortable if they're using this. So that's going to take a little bit of time. And so I would encourage you to keep it simple. We have so many great resources right now, and you see some of those on the screen right now, but make sure that it's whatever can be interactive without taking away from what you are sharing. And the last thing I'm going to say about those collaborative tools is, if someone doesn't want to or doesn't feel comfortable using one of those tools, then what's another option for them? Can they put a comment in the chat instead of on the Padlet or instead of on the Google Doc? And yeah, then there's a buddy that's going to take it and transfer it for them. So we want to make sure that everybody feels welcome, everybody feels engaged, and feels like they can participate in a way. So think about that also, is what about the person who doesn't want to participate in that way? They want to share something, but they can't do it in that particular collaborative tool that you have. There we go. Okay, so I'm happy to see that so many people are putting yes to the microphone there. And we got a little shout outs for Padlet. Love that as well. Everybody, you know what? Feel free, you guys. I think Steve's going to take us to the coffee break part. So if you have a favorite tool, that'd be awesome. Right, Steve?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Kim, for sharing your nuggets of wisdom. A lot of good things shared and other good things being shared in the chat. And thank you for doing that and feel free to do that, those who are responding in the chat. So let's talk a little bit about what a coffee break is. Picture, if you will, you are there at your place of work and you have a steaming cup of your favorite beverage in front of you, or I should say your favorite workplace appropriate beverage in front of you. And you are there talking with colleagues, and you are just having an informal time of chatting, discussion, sharing best practices. And that is what we are going to do here now. There are some guiding questions that you see there on the screen. Well, what we really want to do is have people to unmute, please, and just share. And some just ones to kind of get things started. What are some best practices that you can share about hybrid presenting? We have, I know, a number of individuals on here who are very experienced hybrid presenters and have many good things to share. You could also talk about, this was a great hybrid presentation that we saw at the COABE conference last year. What made it so great? Talk about resources. What resources do you use that you find valuable as you're presenting hybrid? Maybe some of the ed tech tools we were talking about, or maybe something else that you use that you found to be valuable. If you have questions about hybrid presenting, you can certainly put those in the chat. You can certainly say those out. Talk about what's a piece of support that I would want today. And so we've got, or if you want to give a piece of advice, all of those things can happen inside the coffee break. So don't be shy. This is the time to share your best practice. And we will open the floor to whomever wants to speak. I don't know, Sarah, I think you invited some friends. Did you maybe some of your colleagues wanted to get the ball rolling?
You know, here's what I did, Steve. That all of that proper planning that we just talked about is, I do have colleagues and friends here, but I did not tell them that I was going to tee them up. So I'd love for them to share if they are willing to, but I'm not going to call them out by name because I have to work happily and collaboratively with them in the future. But you know who you are, folks. So if you want to get us started with a favorite idea or advice for us, feel free.
Hi all, I work with Sarah at the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center, and we do a lot of hybrid presenting, and I love doing hybrid presenting. I use a lot of the tools that people have mentioned in here, and I added the comment that I do RIP Jamboard. I had to say it. But I really feel like Padlet's made a lot of strides, but I was wondering, has anyone else started using something else in place of Jamboard that's not Padlet? I would love to hear. Or are we all kind of going to Padlet?
I know there's a number of resources. FigJam comes to mind that some people are using. I will try to remember some others, but please in the chat, any alternatives to the missed, the dearly departed, the sorely missed Jamboard, please put those in the chat. And thank you, Tara. Appreciate your comment. Others, any one of these questions, comments, please feel free to unmute.
And thank you. I see a bunch of ideas in the chat as well that I'm taking in. Thank you.
I'd like to share. So
Please.
one of the things that I use, and this is just super low budget, I just use Google Slides. I assign groups particular slides, and that way I can see everyone's work, everyone can see everyone else's work. So Google Slides, I've used that in lieu of Jamboard. And Google Drawings. I love Google Drawings because it allows you to make movable pieces that allows your participants to really be actively engaged. The only thing with creating something like that, the participants would have to reshare it back with me. The Google Drawings, that is. But for Google Slides, it really allows me to get access to seeing everyone's input and work.
That's great. Thank you, Elzora. Appreciate the good suggestions there. Who is next?
I don't mind sharing. My name is Carrie Match-Curry. I'm with the Literacy Center of West Michigan. This is my third time presenting with COABE. And I would say, as far as best practices for hybrid presenting, is to just make sure to communicate expectations. So if you are having like a tech issue, make sure to communicate that so that the people online are aware of that as well as the people in the room. And like give, estimated times to when we'll get started if there's going to be a delay, just so that people aren't just like hanging out online and not really knowing what's going on. And a buddy can definitely be very helpful with that too.
Great. Thank you, Carrie, and thank you for all the times you presented at COABE, and go West Michigan. All right, who is next? The ice has been broken. We see that we've got a friendly audience.
I'll go next. My name is Michelle Sutton, and I am from Wyoming. This will be my second time presenting at COABE, and I'm so excited. And so I think as far as best practices go, I do a lot of hybrid teaching. So my classes are in person, as well as we always have a couple of Zoom students if they're not able to make it to class in person. And I think as you mentioned in the presentation, just make sure that you're mindful of the folks on Zoom. I can't tell you how frustrating it is when you're attending on Zoom and attending a hybrid presentation on Zoom and the presenter is just focusing on the in-person attendees. And so I think just really being mindful. I know that I have a hard time paying attention if I'm not seeing their face. And so for me, definitely seeing their face, making that connection helps me do a lot better when I'm attending on Zoom. And so we're so fortunate, so blessed to be able to do this hybrid presentation, but being really mindful of our Zoom people in addition to our hybrid people. And so I guess one thing that I'm going to be doing is, and I haven't figured out how I'm going to do this for my online Zoom people, but you know, those large sticky notes, the ones posted on the wall and people write on them. I'm going to be doing a little bit of group work with that. And so I'm wondering if anyone has suggestions on how to do that with Zoom. I know you mentioned that a little bit during your presentation here, but any suggestions on a shared Google Doc? Thanks, Carrie. That's a really good idea. Any other thoughts? Padlet. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think that I will take pictures of the posters that people make in class or in person on COABE when I'm done, but it'd be nice to have all of it in one place. So thank you. I appreciate the advice, and I'm so honored and so excited that I'm presenting at COABE again.
Well, Michelle, before you go, I know that everyone may not know, but Michelle is a YouTube adult ed legend, and you have your channel, and you do some very well received things in the adult ed sphere on your channel. As a just giving presenting advice, because you're always so on when you present and do the things that you do for your channel, could you just give some general advice about how to come across well for those who are attending at a distance? How do you shine like you do on YouTube? What are your secrets for doing that? If you wouldn't mind sharing your secret sauce with all the attendees, please.
Oh, well, absolutely. Thank you for that shout out, Steve. I appreciate it. So my YouTube channel is purely persistent, and I have, I guess, 34,000 subscribers, and it's a really special thing. I started it for my students in 2020, and it's blossomed into helping so many people across the country and across the world. And for me, I think really just, of course, knowing the material well, which we all know our material well, but remembering that we're here to serve, right? This is what we're here to share, all that we've figured out and that we want to share. Definitely show that passion in your presenting, smile, engage as much as you can. I think that asking questions to your audience, people online. So I always like to be like, all right, give me a thumbs up, or how are you feeling? Or when I'm asking questions, 1, 2, or 3, hold up your hand, show me what you think. And then same with the people online, give me a 1, 2, or 3. And so instead of having your answers, if you're asking a question, instead of having A, B, or C, your online or your in-person people can't show hands for A, B, and C. So maybe do like 1, 2, and 3, and then the people online on Zoom can easily do it as well. But I think just smile, be excited to be there, and really show your passion. We're, as I said, we're so blessed to be able to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate you sharing that. And you always light up the screen every time on your channel. And I always hate going to a presentation where people are like Eeyore, like, I'm so excited to be here today. And you know they're not because of their affect. So and Michelle does that beautifully with presenting that bright and cheery face. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
All right, who else? Brenda, I see you've unmuted. Did you want to share something?
Sure. First, Michelle, the comment that was made about Google Slides, that works really well for online chart paper, because then you can assign smaller groups to it. That works really well. My advice is have 2 co-hosts. So there's one in the room with you that's kind of monitoring you, making sure you're holding the microphone, kind of fielding questions. But at T-Call here in Texas, what we usually do is have 2, and one is not in the room. One is an actual online participant. And those 2 hosts are working together to make sure that we are taking care of the online folks as well as getting that communication back to whoever's presenting. And that's probably been the biggest help for us, is to have that set up where we have one additional person in the room with the person presenting, and then one online, making sure the online folks get all the attention that they need.
All right, well, Glenda, you have so many wonderful years of experience, and I know you've got 15 other tips to give us, but we'd settle for one more.
Settle for one more. Okay,
Settle
let me
for
think
one
about
more,
this.
maybe 1.5.
1.5. I think is it's kind of what Michelle was saying, be excited about what you're presenting about, because people can hear it in your voice, they can see it on your face. So if you didn't get a good night's rest, or you're super nervous because you had way too much coffee before you got started, then it's going to show. So you want to present your best self.
You are here.
I'm not sure what that was, but just
Go ahead,
that
Glenda.
would be my enjoy yourself. They're there because I'm going to say this. When I first started as a trainer, I had that imposter syndrome. Anybody else know what I'm talking about? Why am I presenting on things that these people all know? And so I was always amazed when people came to my sessions, because then I felt like I was stealing their time and telling them things they already knew. And it took a little while for me to learn to slow down, not talk so fast, because they are not bored. They're there because they want to be there and they have something they want to learn from me. And so my job is to see how I can help them with the reason that they came to my presentation and get what they need. So I think that would be my other, is just keep in mind that they're there because they want to be there. They want to hear what you have to say. And so engage them at that level and see how you can help them before they leave your session with something they can apply to their practice.
Well, Glenda, you are an ed tech legend. Would you mind sharing some of your favorite ed tech tools that you like to use during hybrid presentations?
At this point, with the population that I usually work with, I try to keep it as simple as possible. So I stick to 1 or 2. I don't try to throw 15 different ed tech tools into the same presentation. I think that's distracting and difficult. So I choose the one that I think fits best my objectives for the session. A lot of times for me, it's going to be Poll Everywhere, because it has multiple choice, open-ended ranking. It has all kinds of different polls, it has all kinds of things you can do. But all the other ones that people have mentioned are good. I'm careful with Google, just because here in Texas, some of the schools districts have banned Google. So I need to make sure when people are presenting that whatever they're using, everybody can use. Everything has to be vetted before that, but I love Google. So it's hard for me. I have to swing that balance between who do I think about the people who are going to not be able to use it with their work emails and make them use a other device or something like that. Other tools, oh my gosh, there's so many tools. Quizlet, I love Quizlet. I actually like Quizlet Live better than I like Kahoot, but I like Kahoot. I like quizzes. Anything that I can do to get people engaged. But again, I really do try to limit it to 1, no more than 2 external tools to Zoom. I've started using a lot more of the Zoom tools, like the whiteboard annotate on the screen, that kind of thing, just because you don't know when you're presenting who is on the other end of the screen. How much experience do they have? You know, we have a lot of times with people who don't know how to go between tabs and get back to Zoom. They get lost getting back to Zoom. So I try to keep that as simple as possible.
Well, thank you so much, Glenda. And I have to brag on Glenda. I saw her do a webinar a few weeks ago, and there was one participant who I think kind of thought the presentation was just for them, and they were unmuted and they were sharing like everything they were doing. And just to make the case in point that sometimes during our presentation, things will go wrong and we will be dealing with unexpected situations. And Glenda handled this beautifully. She handled it with a smile. She took it with humor and was laughing about what was going on, and treated, even though she was giving this webinar to a nationwide audience, she still treated this particular gentleman who thought it was all about him, just like he was very polite and respectful to him. So be prepared for those situations and be prepared to deal with those situations with a smile. Thank you, Glenda. Who else would like to share or ask a question or talk about a great hybrid presentation they witnessed?
While we wait for that, Steve, there was a question in the Q&A. If you're co-presenting with somebody, do you flip back and forth with being a buddy and a presenter? My recommendation would be to have a separate buddy if I co-present with somebody else. I like both of us to be focused on the presentation with a separate presenter buddy, but I would love to hear other perspectives on that if anyone else has them, like Steve or Sarah or Glenda, if you guys have any other advice on that.
I agree with Kim, and I was going to say the same thing. You can make that work, but you really having somebody who's not spending their cognitive energy thinking about specifically about that content, what they're trying to share. They are doing this other role. That is really helpful. And, you know, I think the more people you can have, the better to help support you.
Let's see, Tara has a question in the chat about feedback from the presentation. And certainly, you know, anything that's shared on Whova is available for 6 months afterward. I'm not 100% sure, Tara, of exactly what feedback you were looking. Oh, okay, Michelle, thank you for taking that question. Okay, appreciate it. But that is one of the great things about Whova. I find a lot at the conference that in any one particular time block during the general sessions, there's 5 things I want to attend. And of course, we cannot attend all of those live or virtual at the same time. The beautiful thing about Whova is it does keep those for 6 months later, so we can watch those later when we have the time. So that is a great feature for using this platform.
Hey,
All
Steve.
right.
Steve, do
Yes.
you mind? And again, if the other people have questions, I'm only going to say this for a minute, but I think we need to back up and reset. I saw a couple of people put some things in about maybe getting anxious about something. And we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome. We went to all these other places. So I want to back up, everybody exhale, and think about some of the best sessions that you've ever gone to. You know, was it because it was like this really academic concept of, or this like really extensive research? Generally, the sessions that really hit us, they come and they show, again, they show their passion. They show some idea of how they were able to support their learners, or maybe a new tool that they tried, or maybe a little something different in a way that they have engaged with their learners. That's what really speaks to us. So I just want to encourage everybody that's presenting to be excited and proud of the topics and the information that they're sharing. We need to hear you. We need to hear every one of you. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for presenting. And thank you for coming today to prioritize really thinking about how can I give the best experience to my attendees as possible. Just the fact that you're here today shows that, you know, you're going to elevate your game.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. and appreciate everyone sharing about the best presentation they ever saw. Michelle asked about the buddy marketplace, so to speak, and that will be coming soon. I will get that up soon. I'm writing a reminder note to myself to get that very soon. So we will get that out, but it will be coming, and we'll certainly will announce that. Let's see. Nicole mentioned it was great for sharing perspectives. Carrie mentioned about the tech setup for a hybrid presentation. Our presenters running the slide deck and the Zoom both. Well, Carrie, don't know how familiar you are with the Whova platform, but the Zoom is integrated inside the Whova app. And so you could certainly, as the presenter, do the slides that yourself. And we or your buddy could do those. It just depends on how you want to work that. It's you and your buddy would just agree as to how you would want to do that, but there's several different ways that you could do that. I think much of the time the buddy is sharing the slides, but it could go through from there. Your buddy's really big job is making sure they're looking at the chat, they're seeing what the online folks are saying. They are, if a question is asked in the room, they are relaying that question to the online participants, and you would just have that second computer there in the room where the buddy is in order to do that. We will be, and thank you, Michelle, we will be doing office hours, and Michelle will share exactly where those will be coming in the chat, and that will be a chance where we will talk a little bit more about this and be getting into the weeds, so to speak, or getting into the specific details about how it will look sharing on the Whova platform. And Michelle and I will be doing that in the weeks prior to the presentation. So we try to schedule those for a Friday, which is typically a day which I think for most is a little bit less busy. And so those will be noontime or late morning if you're on the West Coast. But thank you for putting those in the chat. Let's see, Elzora has been raising your hand. Did you want to share something else? Please feel free to do so.
Sure. I want to speak to nervousness and anxiety. Our body doesn't know the difference between us being anxious or excited. So if you ever feel that you're anxious, just tell yourself, I'm excited. One of the things that helps me is I realize that it's not about me. And when I take the thought of it's not about me, it's about me being of service and how can I help, then it takes the edge off, right? And let's see, engagement online. I knew I wanted to say. I had the opportunity to participate with Tony Robbins trainings. And if anyone knows, Tony Robbins trainings start at 10 o'clock in the morning and sometimes in at 2 o'clock the following morning, 6, 7, 8 days straight. And he was very masterful at keeping people engaged, he and his team. So we were up moving, we're responding, dropping things in the chat. We had these little sticks with hearts and things of that nature just to keep us engaged. And there's science and research behind the idea of keeping people engaged. So just making sure that you're asking people's feedback, their thoughts, using the chat, and just seeing people and acknowledging them too. Like if you see someone nodding and, I see so-and-so nodding, and just letting the people know that you see them. I hope that helped.
That helped a lot. Thank you, Elzora. You are a wealth of great information. Let's see, Dr. Don Finn, you would like to add something, please.
Hey, thanks so much, Steve. Thanks to all of you for your really engaging session and giving people an opportunity to share, to talk about some of their apprehensions, anxieties, and also the great methods that they have witnessed and maybe have participated in. I just wanted to say it's really interesting. So this year, I'm serving as scheduling these sessions. And what's amazing about this process is that right now we have about 413 sessions that are being offered at COABE 2025. And of those 413, 211 are hybrid sessions. So, over 50% are hybrid. And I think back, some of you may not know or remember me as president of COABE because I was the COVID COABE president. My presidency literally was virtual. Everything was virtual, and it really put us in an interesting position with the Baltimore conference that was set for 2020, that we ultimately had to produce an online national conference, something that probably probably hasn't been done on that scale before. We have no idea, but it was just insane. And so Michelle can tell you, Sharon can tell you, the COABE office just was churning out, just hours and hours of work trying to put together and trying to save the conference. And it ended up being a huge success. And we thought, okay, we're going to be back next year. Well, not exactly. So we ended up having to do a second virtual conference. And I think that, with that, we kind of honed things in a little bit better and really we were able to make things better. When we finally became face to face again in Seattle, we were actually amazed at the number of people who came back to in person. But we were equally amazed at the number of people who wanted to join, and really some of them had to join because they couldn't travel yet, through the hybrid offerings. And so this has really become part of the conference that we probably would not have thought about 7 or 10 or 6 years ago. We had no idea what was going to happen. Although we had done some virtual conferences, we had some smaller virtual conferences, etc. All of that to say, to all of my fellow presenters, I'll be presenting as well. I've been presenting at COABE for 117 years, but all of my sessions will be hybrid as well because what you're doing is the reach that you have and the fact that your session will be archived and accessible to folks after the conference is a real big deal. So really, I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody here who submitted conference proposals, who is willing, whether this is your first time and you're going out on a limb and you're going to try this hybrid deal or you've done it before. Really thank everybody for your contributions to this coming year's conference and conferences to come. I think that it's a wonderful learning opportunity for everybody. So anyway, just wanted to give that background. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you giving me the mic.
Thank you, Don, and appreciate all the work you're doing. I know so much is going on behind the scenes, and seeing all the list of sessions. I know you've done a great job with helping presenters to get ready. And thank you so much for all the work you've done, as well as your service. And you are very well remembered for the work you did as COABE president, whether it was virtual or whether it's virtual or not. You are very, very well remembered. So thank you for the work that you've done. Just as a coming attraction, we still do have a couple minutes if someone else was thinking of something, but as a coming attraction in a few weeks on February the 27th, if you liked today, you'll like February the 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern time because you will see 3 familiar faces. Kim and Sarah and I will be doing another presentation, and this will be a little more of a webinar focused about how to present with excellence at the COABE conference. So this will be a little bit more in depth in the weeds about best practices for presenting. And so looking forward to that coming up again, and information will be on the presenter page, but that'll be Thursday, February the 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. You loved us today. You'll love us even more on the 27th. So anyone else? We still have a minute or two. Yeah, Carrie, I liked your point that who would tells you how many people watch during and after the conference. Yeah, I have watched many sessions after the conference. It's a great ongoing resource. Anyone else? You've been saving a golden nugget for the last couple minutes, and you're waiting for the time, and the time is now. And we're doing wait time. All right. Well, I think we've done enough wait time. We definitely did a lot more than the 10 seconds that I normally do. Kim, Sarah, any final thoughts? And thank you first and foremost for your Superman pose. Okay, Jen, at the conference, I'm going to be at your session and looking for the Superman pose. So, Kim, Sarah, anything else that you would like to add today?
I would just say thank you to everybody. I think that, you know, hybrid presenting, if you haven't done it before, can be really, you think it might be easier than it is, but coming and getting prepared to making sure that your audience members have a great experience. I'm so appreciative of that and all the wonderful ideas that you guys were able to share with us today. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Like, we are here to help and support you in any way that we can. And so thank you for coming and thank you for your ideas.
And I'll just add to all of that great advice, show your passion, have fun. And again, thanks to everybody for presenting in a hybrid fashion at COABE.
Yes, thank you all so much. And we will look forward to seeing you at future events, the 27th and at the office hours, and of course at the conference, either in person or online. So thank you all so much. Thank you for everyone who participated today.